Greetings, it's Mike Middleman. Welcome to part two of the definitive video guide to getting you behind the scenes to access the hidden job market via LinkedIn. Or in other words, let's get you some informational interviews. So as you can see by my screen, I've gone to my home page on LinkedIn. We're going to do three searches by the commonalities that we discussed in the prior video, which are commonalities by university or school, commonalities by former employer, and finally commonalities by second connections. So if I go into the upper left-hand bar and click the search menu, I'm going to pull down search for people. LinkedIn will give me three sort of quick search filters here, but we want to search under all filters to give us the greatest number. So let's assume for a minute that I wanted to network into people at Google who are in New York City. So I would add a location, I would click Greater New York City or type it in here. I would scroll down here under current companies, I would put Google. Now you're going to see a lot of different Google type entities. I would pick as many of them that are appropriate for your search. You can't rely upon LinkedIn to have taken all of the different subsidiaries under the Google, what looks like big name, and code them properly. So I would just pick any and all of the Google entities that seem to match what you're interested in. So now this first search is going to be by people who went to my school, the University of Pennsylvania. Now I can type in the University of Pennsylvania here, or I can just select it from the pick list here. Whenever I do a search, it'll default to showing me Penn people, so that's why Penn will always be one of my top 5 here. So I'm simply going to pick it in my pick list, and now I'm going to hit in the upper right-hand corner, apply. So now we can see there's 181 results, 181 people who have graduated or are still at the University of Pennsylvania, who currently work at Google in the greater New York City area. Let's assume for a minute that I wanted to narrow that down a bit because 181 people seems like it's a daunting number to try to contact and get conversations with. I could have easily picked up people. Let's assume I wanted to pick up or have contacts with people who are in software development. I'm going to be shown all different results, like people in HR, people in finance, who aren't necessarily directly connected with software development. So if I want to subsort by software development, I'm going to go to the upper left-hand corner, the same search bar as before, and I'm going to type in software development. I'm going to have quotations around the beginning and the end to make sure that we let LinkedIn know to do an intelligent search. So now we see that we have 32 results. We see 32 professionals that have software development in their title or somewhere in their background. So that's a great manageable list. So that's easily a list that I could send invitations to all of them within 10 minutes and then wait for the results. So I'm going to take away software development in preparation for our next search. And I'm going to go back to the all filters. Now we're going to search for people who used to work at Merrill Lynch, the company that I used to work for. So I'm going to leave on the various filters, Greater New York City, Google. I'm going to remove school, and I'm going to go to past companies, which is right next to current companies, and I'm going to put in Merrill Lynch. Now, having been taken over, Merrill Lynch has many different subsidiaries. It's also owned by the Bank of America, so I probably would put Bank of America in here. So definitely would encourage you to do any kind of a smart search because LinkedIn won't always necessarily connect the two, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Great. So I'm going to hit apply, and I get 15 results. Now, you can see the software development is still in the upper left-hand corner where I had gotten rid of it before. So that's a very important rule to remember that LinkedIn's filters sometimes stay where you remove them, or sometimes additional filters crop in. So you really have to be careful to look and see whether those filters are the ones you want. So let's assume for a minute, instead of software development, this time I wanted to say software engineering. You can see it's different. It's probably a big overlap, but there's only 10 results now instead of 15. Again, it's the same concept that you can really put any set of text up here. Great, so let's go on to the third sort, which is going to be a sort by people who I have second connections with. And I defined second connections in the prior video as you both know somebody in common. You don't necessarily know that person per se, but you both have a common connection. So if I go to all filters, I'm going to remove any old filters that I no longer want, remove past company. I'm going to double check to make sure that no school filter is there because again, LinkedIn sometimes will we'll revert back to an original search. And now I want to get people who are second connections. So the upper left-hand corner, we have our connections filter. So I'm going to click second connections and I'm going to click apply. So in this case here, we actually have 161 results. Oh, software engineering is still there. Good to know it never leaves. So we have 161. So I could further subsort if I want to really find those people I want. So you can see very, very powerful ways to sort within LinkedIn. So let's talk about how to connect with those people. So connecting with contacts that are from your university or former employer is a very quick and fast process, but connecting with people who are second connections is not as fast and argue not as great, but you still are going to have many more people probably that are second connections than necessarily you share a school with or a former employer. So in this case here, the only reason why it slows us down a bit is because I'm going to make some recommendations as to best practices when it comes to wording to use. So to the right of any kind of a person's name, you're going to see most likely a connect button. Sometimes you'll see a message, but let's assume you see a connect button. I'm going to click the connect, and I'm always going to add a note, as we discussed in video number 1. I'm going to add a note, and as I mentioned before in the prior video, I always like to remind somebody what our connection is. So in this case here, I would do control paste, and I would say greetings. We both know Bob Smith. But wait a minute. I don't remember who that first connection was because I didn't look it up. So let's just reverse here and say before we hit the connect button for a second connection, we can see here that LinkedIn is telling us we have 5 shared connections. If I click on shared connections, I don't really have to pick someone I know. Would it be great if I knew them? Yes, but I'm connecting with plenty of people I don't know. So let's assume Thomas Garvey. So I'll just make the assumption that's Tom Garvey. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back to Kim Smith. I'm going to hit connect, add a note. I'm going to paste in my generic message, and I'm going to substitute Matt Harvey here. Greetings, we both know Matt Harvey, wish to connect. I would send that out. And then generally within 24 to 48 hours, the majority of contacts that are going to accept your invitation will. So you can see it's a slightly laborious process to actually click in, figure out who you connected to, because as we go, as we show in the next search, connecting by university is a lot faster process. So I'm just going to go redo the university search. Give me 1 second. I'm going to remove second connections. We still have Google. I'm going to put in University of Pennsylvania. I'm going to click apply. Now, if somebody has gone to Penn, there's no need to customize the message beyond the fact that I've gone to Penn. So let's take the very first contact, Nicholas Gomez. I'm going to click connect. Always going to add a note, and for the language we talked about last time, greetings, Penn 88 wishes to connect. Then I'm going to send the invitation. The next person, connect, add note, paste in the information, send invitation. So you can see, you could literally send out hundreds of invitations in 10 minutes by just connecting and adding notes. You don't need to customize the note more than Penn 88 wishes to connect because you're simply reminding them of your commonality. I don't see the need to use a name at this point. So I would not, the only caveat is I wouldn't invite more than 75 people per day to connect because LinkedIn gets a little huffy if you go beyond 75 per day. So now basically we've shown everyone how to do a search, how to connect with people, depending upon whether you have a commonality of school, employer, former employer, or second connection. So now the question becomes, what do I do that I've made the connection and people have actually responded to me that they've connected? So if I get a notice that someone has connected, it'll be in the messaging icon here, and you'll probably get a LinkedIn, you'll probably get an email, depending on how you have your settings set up. But I'm going to go into my messaging, and I'm going to make the assumption, let's look back, and let's assume for a minute that this gentleman here is connected with me. So I'm going to click this person, and now I get to send them a message, and it's completely free. This is not an in-mail feature, which costs money on LinkedIn. So now Matthew Louisa, I'm assuming that he just linked in with me. So then what I would do is, first I would This is a reach out basically for coffee or a conversation. I would always put the first name in because we're at the stage now where you want to personalize because you're actually asking for, in essence, a favor. So I would say Matthew. And from the language that we talked about in the prior video, I'm going to paste in language, just clean it up a little bit. Thanks for connecting with another Penn alumni, or maybe we should be more precise and say Penn alumnus. I'm a 10-year IT executive exploring new full-time opportunities and would value your career advice. Would you have time for a coffee or short 15-minute call early next week? We never use the word job. We're being very disarming, and we simply want this person's advice. Then I would hit the send button. So that really is the way to increase the greatest probability that this person will want to give you career advice. So that really concludes this video. The important thing I can't stress enough is to send out a volume number of these connections with people, constantly request phone calls. The more that you do this, the more you'll get the perspective of the marketplace as to where your next opportunity could be, different companies that are growing within the industry. If you really conduct these conversations eventually with best practices, you can really learn so much, especially if you have 5, 10, 15 of these conversations. You can quickly learn who's growing in the marketplace, where the opportunities might be. So thank you very much. This concludes part 2 of the definitive video guide to getting you behind the scenes to access the hidden job market via LinkedIn. Good luck, and please let me know how your informational interviews went. Thanks.